Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counter Clipping show number 183 for July 29th, 2024. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. We are still clipping the Greatest Day Utah Beach. We didn't make a lot of progress off show, but I have, I think, consigned myself to the fact that this is going to go in baggies, which has enabled me to clean up the large mess that this has left on my table. So we are drinking, once again, Mayor Pingree. Thank you, John, for this spectacular gift, bottled at a robust 47%. It is excellent. But at this point, I've had it for a while, so I would like to clear the space off the shelf because space is limited. Our topic tonight, we're going to talk about some key features of OCS specifically, because after taking a break, more or less unintentionally, I got to play some OCS over the weekend, and we'll talk about that as well. In addition, I am also Joe Perez working on the markers. The Allied forces, meaning the U.S. forces, are all clipped. I'm working on the markers because there's a lot of them, and I don't actually want to clip the Germans during the show because there's too much visual that is required to sort them out correctly. So in any case, let's see what we got going on here. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody to please thumbs up the video, like it, heart it, save it, whatever you do on your platform that you're watching on, and to subscribe or follow the channel. We might be able to send the show to TikTok as a destination at some point soonish, but we'll see, and that's not going to get in the way of any of our regular activities. So I want to also remind everybody that there are a bunch of links in the video description to support the channel. I want to specifically call out the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair. Their help of the patrons through Patreon is much appreciated and helps a great deal toward making this thing actually occur week in and week out, more or less. There is also in the video description the Noble Knight affiliate link, and I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor, Noble Knight Games. So thanks, Noble Knight. And we'll be giving some extra thanks too in the videos that we'll be streaming out over the next couple, or I should say, releasing over the next couple of weeks. And I'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the show. I want to also shout out to Simon Hart and Garrison Venn for hopping in or re-hopping in, as the case may be, as swordsman level patrons. So thanks, Simon and Garrison. And I have updated the card and the banner. Sometimes I remember one, sometimes the other, and sometimes neither. It has been like a month since I have remembered both. So they're both updated. So the ticker is good to go, and I have updated the link to the Ardwulf's Lair Discord community if anybody wants to hop over there. If the link has expired because you're watching the show later, just send me an email. My email address is in the ticker as well, and I will get you a personalized invitation. So anyway, maybe I'll talk about the TikTok thing toward the end of the show. I'm not gonna derail for that. There's usually a bit of slush time at the end. We do, however, have quite a bit to talk about because I went to WBC over the weekend. I'll talk about it when we get to talking about it, but and then we have a GMT update that also hit between last show and this show as well, and we are going to talk about that. So before we get any further with any of this, let's say hello to B. Atkins, Brent McCabe, Carl Fung. Carl, thanks for stopping by. We will be discussing your efforts this evening. Chet Bell, Craig Alexander, Dow Wednard, Dangerous Dave, Daniel Silverthorne, David Imperato, David Zell, Dirk Plexiglass, Eric Goebel, Grunyard Rich, the legend himself. Mr. Fucko is here. Jeff Anderson, Jeffrey Edwards, Joe Perez, Joe Mentum, John Mogg, John Clark, Jonathan Dyer, Joseph Hammond, Carl Crater from the Wargame Boot Camp, John C. from the sunny and waterlogged Philippines is here. John, I hope everything is okay. He's not on the list, though. Kyle Harris, Lee Grant, Marty Sample is here. I got to see Marty again up at WBC. Meandering Mike is here. Michael Avanzini, Michael Simon, Molotov Cockatiel, Palmer Eldridge, Panzer Division Lair, Patrick of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, Paul Dangle, Paul, Perfidious Albion, Perry Sporopoulos, Rob Johnson, Robert Maxey, Ryan Heward, Scott Bell, Scott Rowland, Stacking Limit is in the house. Stephen Roberts Stigler is here. Tim Zales, Vicky Vincery, and William Bird. And I apologize for anybody that I have missed. Mike B., welcome to the show. And Mean Joe Green is here as well. So it is all good. Lots of us feel too old for TikTok. Let's put it that way. So I think we're going to get into the GMT update first. I may occasionally have to bust out the deluxe clipper because I think I just need to take this apart and clean it because it is both making noise and missing every so often. It'll like leave. The cut won't be quite clean. So that is okay. So let's hop over here. Oh, and it's actually working today. That's novel. Cool. All right. Anyway, so here's the GMT update. This released sometime last week. News from Gene. This is an RIP to the late John Olson, who passed away relatively recently. So for those who knew John, let's keep them in our thoughts. They're talking here about how they got home from Tempe. As usual, I'm not going to read this whole thing. If you want to read the whole thing, go over to GMT's website and read the whole thing. That's great. I will hit the highlights. So the 2024 yearly sale, as previously clarified, will occur in September and not in July. Congratulations to the GMT CSR Award winners. I would say GMT did pretty well, and in particular, Downfall did extremely well, so I am happy about that. I'll talk about that in a minute, too. Not about Downfall specifically. So they list the awards here. I'm having scrolling difficulties. They are now carrying Shakos games, which is very interesting. They actually had these on a table at WBC. So that is pretty cool that Shakos stuff will be available from GMT. I will definitely be investigating these Napoleon games. There was a Charioteer event at WBC. I have no idea what friggin' room this was in. It was not one that I was in. So we did not explore the entire facility looking for every little game in every little tiny room. So, but we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so Mark Herman's new book will be going to the printer in late July. War Games According to Mark. Very much looking forward to this. There is a Rodney over at Watch It Played anyway. I don't know if Rodney was involved. Got a complete game of Cuba Libre on video. That's cool. Counter-Tracer back in stock. There's a new GMT Talk podcast out. What's shipping and what's next? So we'll cover that in a minute here. And here's some not there yet P500 games that could use some more orders. I'm not really worried about any of these. With the possible exception of Napoleon in Egypt, which seems to be not getting as much traction as I would have expected. It looks quite promising, so check it out. And if you are interested in it, check it out, right? Herman Lettman's Plum Island Horror is getting reprinted and is getting an expansion and has gone over like absolute gangbusters. There were people playing this at WBC as well. So there's a new scenario for Conquest and Consequence. I'd be curious to see this because I looked at the original Triumph and Tragedy 2-player scenario and thought it was awful. I thought it really lost a lot from losing that third player. So anyway, oh yes, indeed. Expect a video on Roger's book sometime in the next week and a half or so from me. You will get a full flip through. So, all right. So here's Defiance, and this, I believe Mark said he had this set up at WBC, or that may have been the next Civil War Heritage Series game. This looks right up my alley, so I am cordially interested in this. I think I've said that before, though. That is a co-designed by Mark Herman and David Doctor, so worth a look. So let's see here. Back of the box for Fields of Fire. That's nice. Jason Carr, GMT1 Solitaire update. There's some update on Founders of Ravik. Here are some updated Vassal modules as usual. And we don't need to cover that. A bunch of interviews, including Jason Carr, who talked to Push and Cardboard, Mark Miklos, who talked to the Player's Aid, Richard Garfield, who talked to Mesa de Guerra. I wonder if Richard conducted that in Spanish. I've never really met Richard Garfield. I'm sure I've spoken to him that year that Magic the Gathering came out. He's been surrounded by a large posse of hangers-on since then. So I don't know about now, because it's been 20 plus years since I've seen him. Legendary Tactics talked to VPJ, our opponent. That's great. And also Matthias Kramer. So that's cool too. All right. So P500 editions. I would like to say, I told you so. I told you so. The mystery Frank Chadwick classic is indeed A House Divided. This looks like a bit of a redesign from Frank, which is cool. But I don't really care. I will buy this anyway. I don't own A House Divided, have never owned it, have never played it. It's probably overdue. This is a terrific fit for GMT's audience and product line, in my opinion. So we will zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. There is Italy 43 from Mark Simonich. We'll take a look at this in a second as well. A World at War supplemental counter sheet. Did we? Yep. No, we need to take a look at that too, because for the folks that are into a World at War will probably want this. There are mounted map boards for a World at War available on P500 as well for anybody that feels that's necessary. I personally don't. Just of Robin Hood, second printing, and Next War India Pakistan, second printing. All of these are now on P500. So, the new editions. So, A House Divided. This is, of course, not the cover, but it's a cute little thumbnail, and I like it. It's got a good chunk of orders. I have not put my orders in yet because I was away for the weekend when this was all going down. So, there is a little sneak peek at the map here, so it's going to get new map art. I hope so. I frankly found the Mayfair and Phalanx editions to be somewhat ugly. So just the graphical upgrade and GMT's capable hands, I will be very pleased with. So, and it is a classic. And here's some sample, not final art counters. These also look very good. So, can't wait to see this. This is going to be really cool. So, Italy 43. This is the game that was earlier being talked about as the Gustav line, I believe. This is the second in Mark Simonich's Italy trilogy using the Zocbond system. Now, what it doesn't look like is that you can connect this map to the Salerno 43 map, just looking at the maps. That might be a mistaken assumption on my part, and it may be that you just aren't intended to play them together. Either one of those things is possible, but in any case, this is a guaranteed sale from me. So, and then here's a shot of the counters as well. And of course, Mark Simonich does the maps and the counters as well, so it's going to look great. The 2024 replacement counter sheet. Now, don't be stunned if they add some stuff to this, but at the moment, what is in here are errata and additional counters for Banish All Their Fears, Downfall, Great Battles of Alexander Deluxe, Next War Poland 2nd Edition, Norman Conquest, Panzer North Africa, Tanto Manta, and Under the Southern Cross. Unlike the last errata counter sheet, where I had like 18 of the like 21 games that were on there or something like that, I've got about half of these. So I'll get it. It's $3 for US customers, so foolish not to get it. So I'll get it. And then we have the World at War 2024 supplemental counter sheet. This is very interesting, and I had no visibility on this. So what this is looks like it's a half a counter sheet, to be honest, but maybe this is just half of it. So there's partial oil counters, Western Allied transport and ASW markers with gradients, Croatian infantry, Polish armor, Free French units, some more ships, some more German armor units, additional flag counters, and just some additional counters of miscellaneous things. So I'll pick, what does this cost? I didn't check. $4. Sure. I'll give them $4 for this. No problem. So, and Carl Crater says that Mark had Italy 43 at Consim Expo, which is cool. I might talk about the next year exceptionally tentative convention plans as well at the end as well. So back to the update. Having talked about the new entries and then the reprints as well, which is great. New P500s on the horizon. So, a space-themed game for the ICS series. That's the Irregular Combat series. I believe that Just of Robin Hood is one of those. So those are going to be small, compact games. There will be a small footprint American Revolution battle game. Interested in seeing that, at least if it's attached to the Battles of the American Revolution series. The fast-playing, manageable, imminently replayable 4X space game you've been waiting for, really. I don't know what that is, but I am intrigued. Let's see it. A cool new governing game from the designer of Prime Minister, and something new for the Men of Iron series, which is fantastic news. I think somebody told me what the next Men of Iron game was going to be, and I am also sure I forgot. So moving on, yearly bestsellers, coming events. I'm not even going to go through this since my convention season is basically over. But check this out. There's conventions all over the world here. Weekend at the Warehouse coming up. This is Napoleonic Wars, actually, and there was a 33-person tournament of this at WBC. I got one picture. I didn't take many duplicate pictures of like the same game getting played over and over again, but there was a lot of that. Coast Watchers from Volco, that's going to be intriguing as well because it's from Volco. I still have not yet ordered my Combat Commander throw from Kai. I need to get on that. Got to see Kai and meet Kai in person at WBC, which was fantastic. She was delightful in person as she is on StreamYard, so that was great. We got some stuff from the Board Games Chronicle, who is continuing to do a bang-up job over there. Washington's, whoa, what is this? This is Red Dust Rebellion. That's pretty interesting. And I believe there might have been a proof copy of that on a shelf at WBC as well. Most requested stuff, charging and shipping. All right, so we're getting into the nuts and bolts now. So, in addition to the stuff that they've already shipped, charging August 5th and shipping around August 12th includes Labyrinth, The Awakening 2nd printing, Labyrinth itself 5th printing, the 3-inch box for Labyrinth, Next War Iran, and a 4th printing of Normandy 44, and another mounted map and 3-inch box in this case for Normandy 44. So, and then he'll have info on the next shipments in the next update. But moving on to the production outlook, they have finished shipping the counter trays, the Downfall mounted map and 3-inch box, I, Napoleon, Virgin Queen 2nd printing, Skies Above the Reich 2nd printing, in the warehouse, late July, charging August 5th, shipping August 12th, the stuff that we just mentioned. At sea includes also the Labyrinth stuff and the France 40 mounted map. At port, which means that the boat is here, but it has to clear customs and go through all the bureaucracy and stuff like that. Red Dust Rebellion, that's going to be pretty exciting as well. So at the printer, but not having a ship date yet, include Commands and Colors Medieval Expansion 1, Comancheria 2nd printing, Congress of Vienna, Holland 44 2nd edition and its mounted map, and Wolf Pack. I saw somebody I had to talk down off the ledge to not buy Holland 44 on the secondary market right now because they'll have it by like September, maybe October at the most. Going to the printer late this month includes Fighting Formations, the U.S. 29th Infantry Division, a giant pile of Space Empires things, which include all the old things and the one new thing that's coming. Talon, that includes Talon as well. Also moving up to this space on the production queue are War Games According to Mark Harmon's book, which is going to be amazing, and the Battle for Normandy Deluxe Edition. I do believe that puts us in a position for this particular batch of stuff, I think, has a chance to be out this year. I don't know that I'd put a lot of money that it will be, but I think there's a chance, and I'll be delighted to pay for it in December or November or January or whatever. So shut up and give me the stuff. I'll take my money. All right. In final art and proofing, 4th printing of A World at War. The mounted maps for that by Swords and Bayonets. None of this is news. These are all where these things were last time as well. Let's hide that. Fields of Fire Deluxe and the update kit. Hoplite 2nd printing, In the Shadows, No Retreat to Russian Front, Deluxe Edition 3rd printing. I'm not sure what's deluxe about it. That wasn't deluxe about the last printing, but okay. Seljuk Byzantium Besieged by our very own friend of the channel, Mr. Justigard. That's pretty exciting too. In final art and proofing, 3 to 4 months away from going to print. So if you think about that, that means this stuff probably going to print around October, maybe November, and we will probably get it something like March, April, something like that. To give or take a month in all directions here. Battles of the American Revolution Tri-Pack number 2, Cross Bronx Expressway, Cuius Regio, which I am super looking forward to, Infernal Machine, Mr. President 2nd edition, and its update kit, Thunderbolt Deluxe, that I have been waiting 20 plus years for, or whatever it's been. Thunderbolt, if you didn't order the Deluxe, the Weimar Republic, Unconditional Surrender 3rd printing, and Zheng He from David Thompson, and a co-designer who I'm forgetting, and I apologize for having forgotten the co-designer's name. Is it Jeff Engelstein? It could be. In the art department is a whole pile of stuff, and none of this is moved, so I'm not going to go through the list. If you want to see it, go talk to GMT. In the art department, again, none of this stuff has moved. And ready for artist assignment is A Fading Star, Defiance, Epipoli, Iron Storm, Order and Opportunity, The Guerrilla Generation, and Zhizhka. And I think 1 or 2, even though they're not bolded, 1 or 2 of those might have actually moved up. So I don't think this is impossible, Eric Schaefer. I just wouldn't bet on it, getting it quite as early as October. It could happen. I wouldn't bet on it. I do think there's a better chance we'll see it in November or December. Let me put it that way. All right, so let's pull this down and move over the slideshow after we have arranged the slideshow. Now we're going to talk about WBC. So the plan for WBC was to go out on Friday, get there at 6, 7, 8 o'clock, something like that. And we did that and stay all day Saturday and then leave fairly early Sunday morning. So by the time Saturday about 5 p.m. rolled around, we felt accomplished, and we as me and Fucko, by the way. So thanks to Fucko for keeping me company on the drive. And for not complaining too much about me smoking more or less constantly on the drive. So there's that. And I, of course, picked a fabulous road music soundtrack for him to enjoy on the trip. It was great. Anyway, so we got there Saturday, and we decided around 5 o'clock that we had gotten everything accomplished that we were going to accomplish. And if we left now, we can get home by dark. So we left. And did not stay the extra night. Now, we had arranged with a buddy for crash space at a condo. That worked out okay since we weren't like on the books for the hotel or anything like that. Maybe we'll make a different arrangement next year. I can 100% imagine going again next year, maybe for more time. I don't know that yet. So my goal is to quit by the end of the year. Quit. So that's the goal, and we're starting to push on that. I've got some administrative aides to assist with that. So what we're going to see here is mostly pictures from the open gaming area. I took a fair number of pictures, not an insane amount of pictures. So he skipped fewer songs than he's admitting to, folks. Let me tell you, I couldn't get the regular playlist, which was specifically designed to aggravate him working for the way out. So we listened to mostly Yes on the way out because I had a playlist of just Yes. But on the way back, I got the aggravating playlist working. So, it's actually pretty amenable. We're going to probably road trip up to Noble Night in sometime in early Q4 or late Q3. And that is a much larger trip or longer trip than it is for the 2 hours and 30 minutes or so it takes to get out to Seven Springs from here. So anyway, this is Crown and Crescent from Multiman Publishing on a table. This is available for pre-order over at Multiman. It is American Revolution in South Carolina, as you can probably tell. And it looks intriguing. The map looks decent as well. There was sort of this little mini MMP-esque area over in the open gaming area that was pretty much dominated by people doing various MMP things. There was a Storm Over Jerusalem game that I may have gotten a picture of. There was this setup over here is ASL something or other, and here is Warriors of England. Now, this had been on pre-order with MMP, and it wasn't really soaring into numbers, so they put it in the latest Special Ops magazine instead, which I did pick up, and I'll talk about I didn't get that much stuff, but I'll talk about the pickups. This is some ASL scenario or other. I didn't notice the can of Skull on the table when I was there, which is probably good. ASL something going on here. Here we have Storm Over Normandy, also I think available for. Is this out already? I'm not sure. This is out already. It absolutely is. So, you know what? Some of them aren't that bad. At least like the Evangelion. I'm not Mr. Anime by any means, but the Evangelion theme song was fairly catchy, as I recall. So anyway, this is Storm Over Normandy, and I came actually a little close to buying this because MMP had it. Here's another shot of Storm Over Normandy. This is the stupid shot. This is the smarter shot that has the name of the game in the frame. So this here is On Hell's Highway. This is the latest, or will be the latest from New England Simulations, and in this case by the legend John Butterfield. So this looks terrific. I'm not sure if Mark Simonich did the map. I would imagine Mark Hinkle did the map, but it looks great. It does kind of vibe like Holland 44, but the footprint was going to be similar anyway. The counters are, I believe, 5/8" counters. Now, this is playtest stuff, so nothing's final. Certainly, you're not going to see, I'm sure you're not going to see these pink allied counters, for example. But from what I'm hearing, this is coming along very nicely, and we should see it probably next year from New England Simulations. Anyway, this is Unconditional Surrender Western Campaigns. Salvasta was at a table busting this out, and this is probably going to be a very good game, is my guess. Because the things I didn't like about, I liked more about Unconditional Surrender than I disliked, and the things I disliked were the highest level strategic things. This will avoid that. You'll just have the very, very neat puzzle-like nature of the move and maneuver system here. So looking forward to seeing this whenever Sal's ready to roll it out. This is Gettysburg from the Civil War Brigade Battle Series from Worthington. It's very nice. And over here, I believe we have a piece of a Most Fearful Sacrifice. Yes, indeed, we do. This is Banish All Their Fears. I'm not sure I saw them playing this, but it was set up. And you can see the density is fairly high on this thing, by the way. This is Wilderness War in open gaming. Nice to see that on a table. What was this? This is Fortress America. Our host in the condo was actually playing Fortress America. This is one of the old Milton Bradley Game Master Series games. It is coincidentally one of the ones I did not like back in the day. It is back out now from somebody, I don't know who, but apparently these folks had fun with it, and God bless them for having fun with it. This is Imperial Struggle. So if you wander through the board gaming area at Origins, for example, you are going to see a slant toward, it's almost, I would say 95% Euros and about 5% other games, okay? Which includes war games. But there, you'll see a slant toward lighter Euros. Now, you'll certainly see some more complicated ones there. But the slant at WBC toward the heavier Euros is super, super noticeable. I didn't take a lot of pictures of Euros. You'll see a couple of them, including one that I took because I'm like, yeah, I think I want that. But this is obviously not Salerno 40. This is Panzer, actually, is what this is. This is the Wheatfield game from Herman Luttman that's coming out. Ryan Heilman was test driving this. So it was nice to see Ryan again in person. This game also looks extremely promising. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and they keep teasing me with it at these events. Oh, no, it's not available yet. Into the Whirlpool is the name of the game, and it is about the Wheatfield at Gettysburg. So it looks pretty cool. So in any case, this is, I'm not sure what the name of this game is going to be, but this is a game about Operation Exporter. So I believe it's 1942. The British invade Vichy French-held areas of the Levant. It is very promising looking, let me put it this way. So this is a game and a series and a rule set that is currently in development by some people I know. We will be having a conversation with those people when they are ready to have that conversation. But in the meantime, what they have is, for where they are in the process, looks pretty promising. So this is The Greatest Day, Gold, Juno, and Sword, which was the big game that was up in the Winterberry Room, or the Dingleberry Room, as I kept calling it, which was not at all Freudian. But the lighting in that room, by the way, was dire. The WBC people have promised to have new lighting installed for next year. We have actually, Scott Bell have actually floated this very question on several occasions. But I think it's more of a three-way between Herman and Greg and David Thompson at this point. But, oh dear. Somebody did this. Where did I see this? Somebody did this foolishly. And it blew some stacks apart. This was actually in our CSS Saipan game. Relatively recently. So this is fair too, that Joe's got a substantial lead built up. That's fair to say. So the Greatest Day game here got through about June 6th, and I want to say they had 4 players. So next up is Bitter Woods. There were multiple games of this. This is a perennially popular convention event, and like at several other events, it's on the table more than once, and there'll be a bunch of that too. Another one just like that was Russian Campaign. There were at least 3 different editions of Russian Campaign on tables in the Winterberry room. This is Avalon Hill's Old Waterloo. I'm not sure I've ever seen this set up before, because it kind of went out of vogue before I kind of was born. That's not quite true, but it's not a game that sees a lot of action or talk nowadays. And I really can't intelligently comment on it, but my suspicion is that it has not aged all that well in the wake of subsequent scholarship and game designs. But in any event, it is still a classic, and some people were playing it. Here is Africa Corps, and some people were playing this too. And I can say that I don't think this has aged very well. This is White Plains, part of the Battles of the American Revolution system. Mark Miklos runs a big tournament of this. I did not actually see Mr. Miklos at the event, but I believe he was there. But there's a big tournament or event of this at WBC every year. It is very popular. And the game looks, I haven't still yet to play these, but they look good. This is a big Memoir 44 game that happened. It occurred to me while talking about my terrible experiences playing Memoir 44 that it is possibly not, I didn't think it was the game. And I always kind of assumed it may have been the scenarios, but it actually could be these epic rules that resulted in an unsatisfying experience both times I've played Memoir 44. So, Sean, thanks for stopping by. I believe the version of Russian Campaign to get, if you explicitly want the super stripped down old school one, you might look at the one from Compass, the original edition, whatever it's called. Otherwise, I would advise, if you think you're going to play it more than once, I would suggest buying the GMT 5th edition, because you can play it pretty stripped down if you want, but it also has all the bells and whistles and options and overlays and alternate counter mixes and all that stuff. Yes, if that's the case, I definitely missed him because no one was dressed up in a tricorn hat while I was in the room. Mean Joe Green says Africa Corps has aged better than Waterloo. That's plausible. I just have talked to more people that played Africa Corps. So in any case, they apparently had fun playing this big Memoir 44 game. This is part of the A World at War tournament, which I want to say I did talk to Bruce Harper. We're going to probably try and get Bruce back on the show sooner rather than later. That's something we had talked about before, and it just kind of fell through the cracks, frankly. The tournament of A World at War seems to have gone pretty well. So you can see this game, which I think is in 1944 when we're looking at it here. Here's a random European game. By the time we got there, some of the games had ended, but not all of them. So we didn't have an open season on getting the most photogenic pictures. This is, I want to say this is Mare Nostrum from Academy. Which is supposed to be good, but I don't like the name Mare Nostrum because there's 6 or 7 different games called Mare Nostrum. So there's that. Africa Corps was a tremendously influential game. That is absolutely true. I just think, in 1960, whatever, when Waterloo came out, it was, I'm sure, great. But we have a huge selection of Waterloo games to pick from now, and I don't see any reason to pick the Avalon Hill Waterloo. In any case. All right, this is a Jest of Robin Hood, which I think you'll agree looks very nice. This, I don't have a name for this. I am full of shit. This is called The American War 1778 to 1782. What this is, I sat down at this for a couple of minutes, and in that process, actually got to meet Mark Herman in person, which was awesome. Mark is fabulous, by the way. He is... Rumors about Mark's towering height are true from Dan's perspective. Let me put it that way. Mark's a little bit taller than me, but not a towering figure. Another person that I did get to meet, however, was John Butterfield, who is like half a head taller than me. I did not expect that. So it was great to meet both Mark and John in person, and I regret not having time to fart around with them some more. But I didn't want to encroach on their activities, and they were both planning to leave first thing Saturday morning, and that was like not long after we got there. And somebody had to go to bed at 10 p.m. on Friday night, which, bedtime's bedtime, right? You're tired. What can I say? There's definitely an advantage to staying at the facility and not in a condo 10 minutes away. Because if you want to stay up till 2 a.m, and in order to do it, you want to have 3 cups of coffee at 9 p.m., you can do that, and you can Twitch safely in your hotel room instead of having to drive, is where I'm going with that. Or have an adult beverage, which is also great. Speaking of adult beverage, there we go. So anyway, so this game, the American War, 1778 to 1782, is a design on the American Revolution from the French perspective. Sold. If this comes out, and unless the talk about it is much more disappointing than I expect it to be, I am totally super interested in this. That sounds like a fascinating take on an American Revolution game. So the shuttle system might work well, but we've also heard horror stories about, there was something that happened tonight and the shuttle stopped running at 11 p.m. and we had to walk 2 hours to the condo. Not all the condos are actually on the site. So ours wasn't. So no Wi-Fi in the hotel rooms. That's primitive. Not really an excuse for that, in my opinion. All right, so in any case, this looks super promising. This is War of the Ring. I believe this is the new edition from Ares. I've played this. I don't have this. I should probably buy it. It is a Dynamite game. And there was a large tournament of it that Marty Sample, I believe, had participated in. So there are things I like more about the old Richard Berg, Howie Barish SPI game, I gotta tell you. But nevertheless, I think overall this is a better design, and it's certainly more photogenic nowadays. This is one of several tables of the Napoleonic Wars that was running. So I had to take this picture because if you bought something, at least from Multiman, you could take a walk out with a free pair of tweezers. So I had to take a picture so I can send it to my wife and say, "Look, honey, free tweezers." And I could hear through outer space her eyes rolling in the back of her head as she was looking at that photo. So, in any case, free tweezers. These will need a little bit of work with the pliers, but they're nice tweezers. All right, so on the compass front, there is a Brothers at War Volume 2 that is in development, and it is a whole bunch of 1862 stuff, plus some extra add-on stuff from for 1861. So what we have here, and it does the whole Mediterranean front, and apparently the designer had India as part of it too, and nothing ever happened there, so he dumped it. But yes, this should be a significant factor. So what we have here is Belmont, which there's not a lot of games on. There's about 3 games on Belmont. Wilson's Creek, which there's several games on. And Carnifex Ferry, which I am aware of 0 games on. I might be missing some. They are in the middle of nowhere, but they have Wi-Fi outside in the convention facility. So if there's no Wi-Fi in the rooms, that just tells me that they're being cheap or lazy. And the other part of this kit is going to be Bull Run. So this will be first Bull Run. And you can see that the map says Battle for Henry Hill, or Henry House Hill, as it's sometimes called. So I don't know if there's going to be more than one scenario here for Bull Run or not, but it looks super. This was not going to happen in 1778 to 1783. I can tell you that. They came pretty close to launching an invasion in 1805, but that was a completely different situation at that point. And then the whole Trafalgar thing happened, and that plan was abandoned immediately. So, I'd love to see Belmont, actually. I'm happy to, whatever the GBACW team wants to do, I'll be happy to see. Let me put it that way. There's no sense in belaboring that point. That is the Adam Starkweather series, the OSS series, if I'm not mistaken. I have not really looked at that. I'm just not into that topically enough to buy another giant series of games on that topic. I have multiple series of games on that topic already, and I consider myself covered. I did have some trouble. I did 2 shorts from WBC, and one of them took 2 hours to upload. So the signal isn't great depending on exactly where you are, but there is wireless signal. So, All right, this is from Nuts Publishing, and it is To the Last Man. It is a World War I something. I don't really know a lot about this, but it looks intriguing. Bristow Station, I could see, well, yes, this is true. Well, plus they had that whole little affair in, what was it, 1796 or something like that, part of the war of the First or Second Coalition, where they actually did land some troops, and they immediately got captured. So, all right, so I'm not sure I had ever seen or heard anything about this thing. This is called Lords of Baseball, and it is a baseball franchise management simulation, and it looks just like an Excel spreadsheet. I'm probably buying this. This looks amazing. So I think it's a 4-player game, and you can get 2 expansions to add 5 and 6 players and 7 and 8 players. I could totally see playing this online. This could be really cool for those. And it's not like a sports game. You don't play the games out individually, and if you do, it's like super quick. So I am incredibly intrigued by this, and I have already added this to my wish list. Incidentally, I do not have an update on the Noble Knight campaign for this week, just because there has not been no data refresh this week. So GC ACW did cover mine run at the operational level in the latest issue of the Skirmisher, by the way. So yeah, so I'm like, yeah, this looks cool. I need to get this. We are on a moratorium for spending, my wife and I, because we bought a car. So we're on a spending moratorium in August. So I'm not buying it in August. And Noble Knight doesn't have it well, they do actually have it at the moment, but they've got like the all-inclusive Kickstarter edition, and I don't want to spend that much money. So I'll look. I did dig this up, so I have information about where to get it now. So this is Washington's War, which I think we saw before. This is actually Wooden Ships and Iron Men in the Winterberry War Room, and this is the dice tower that these guys are using. I am not sure if you could fully appreciate just how chunky this dice tower is in this photograph. It is humongous. I have seen compact cars smaller than this dice tower, and it clearly has seen aggressive use over the years. So I could not help but investigate this. We, of course, went to, I'm a well-to-do individual, so naturally we bought the most expensive car we could afford, which was a Honda Accord. So it's nice, but, it's a Honda Accord. So it's a completely different thing, though. You're actually playing the baseball game in Status Pro. And I played Status Pro Baseball back in the day, and it was fun. If you really wanted to, you could link this, the Lords of Baseball thing up with Stratomatic, I would imagine, or Status Pro or whatever, and play the games out individually. You would probably never get done with the Lords of Baseball game if you did that. So, I mean, seriously, I have seen Trojan horses smaller than this thing. This is enormous. This is us playing OCS Luzon with Mr. Fucko himself in the background. So we did play this. We busted, he brought this and we busted it out because we're like, yeah, let's play something. We should play something. We're at a game convention. We should play something and not just wander around shopping and talking to people. So we played OCS Luzon. It took us about 2 hours. And bear in mind, I haven't played OCS in like a year. So I was fairly rusty. This was an American or Allied victory. Just because while the Japanese do have a force and logistical superiority, they have a very limited timetable in which to get done what they need to get done, which is to either push the Americans down beneath this perimeter or to capture Manila. And they did not do either of those things. And there were some, let's say, Gary-esque die rolls made by my opponent that resulted in him not really having much of a chance either. So I actually have the Paper Wars Belmont game as well, and it's one of the various things that I need to get to the table. So I'm going to totally investigate more about Lords of Baseball, which does include watching some videos about it. There's really not a lot of non-war game board games that I'm like, ooh, that looks cool. But there are a few, and that is one of them. And hey, I like baseball. What can I say? So about half a counter sheet for Luzon. It's not big. The forces aren't heavy. My initial concern with it was, okay, so you don't have extenders, you don't have this other thing, you don't actually have the ability to rail or indeed move supply around much at all. So I'm not sure how much this is going to teach you about OCS supply. I was pleasantly surprised in that regard. You will totally get a handle on the way trace functions in OCS in this game. If you are the allies, you have very little supply, and honestly, I did zero counterattacking the entire time. It was entirely maneuver. And the Japanese do get some more supply and at least one transport unit, so they can actually move some supply around. So anyway, I played, back in the day, I played Status Pro Football and Status Pro Baseball, and enjoyed them both, frankly. I have never played any other sports games to this day, unless you count video games. And I haven't played any of the fancy modern video sports games. I played the crap out of Tecmo Bowl back in the day, on whatever platform that was on. So here's before we had the light on and we got slightly better pictures. So that's only a 5-turn game. There's not a lot of pieces. It's very fast moving. So, and Stratomax still going strong. That's absolutely true. All right. So this leads us. I set this up this way on purpose, where the Luzon were the last pictures, because this will segue us into the topic of the show tonight, and that is OCS. And let me fix this. There we go. All right. So Mo from Mo's Game Table is here. Mo, thanks for stopping by. John, I haven't the vaguest idea of whether they were taking that feedback or not. I will point out that the designer of OCS Luzon is Japanese, and not from the Philippines. So one would imagine that they did that, but I don't know. So now, what I guess I'll wrap the WBC up before we transition fully into OCS here. So we did leave on Saturday. That there was a dealer's room. I do have a dealer's room walkthrough video, which should be out pretty soon. So hopefully that'll be this week, and you can see the fairly small dealer's room. In the dealer's room there were a couple of vendors that I don't know the names of. That were just like random stuff vendors. There was a crokinole vendor, which I will refer to them as the crokinole vendor. In addition to that, Blue Panther was there, GMT was there, MMP was there, Academy was there, not Lock and Load, Flying Pig was there. So, am I missing anybody? Did I say Worthington? Because Worthington was there too. I spent the budget basically immediately, and then bought, as I almost always do, I blow the budget and then buy one additional thing. In this case, the budget was consumed by Thunder on the Mississippi for GCACW. Picked that up. There will be an unboxing of that probably this week as well. I picked up Roads to Rangoon, which is the latest ASL action pack. I was tempted to not, but I ended up doing so anyway. And I picked up the latest Special Ops, issue number 12. And I'm glad I did that too, because there's a full game in it, Warriors of England. But I don't know. I could take or leave that. I mean, it's probably good. I'm not super duper interested in it. But there is an ASL mini HASL thing in it as well, and that's worthwhile. It contains 4 ASL and 2 ASL starter kit scenarios, as well as a bunch of fairly nice looking articles. And I don't know if I'll do an unboxing or flip through of the magazine products or not, but you will definitely see the other 2 products, one of which is Thunder on the Mississippi, and then the other above budget game that I bought the last copy of I, Napoleon that GMT had. I had dragged my feet too long on the pre-order, and the window closed. So since I was here, I bought it there. And it looks very promising. So you should see an unboxing of that as well. And it didn't even occur to me to ask Ted to do a designer unboxing with me until after I had done the unboxing. So that was me being an idiot. Forgotten Battles was not at WBC. Tony Burkett was there. He had the map for the Hero City up on the wall. But he did not have... Oh, and I should mention Decision Games was there too, but they're not in the dealer's room. They're kind of in the hallway between sections of open gaming. I'm not sure if that's an advantageous position or not. It looks to me like a big pain in the ass because Doc and company actually pack all that stuff up between, like, at the end of the day every day, and that sounds like a hassle. Vicksburg, Wardrobe, thanks for stopping by. Yes, you have just missed it because I did grab it while I was there, and it looks great, by the way. So I can't wait to see how they handle things like how the maneuver that's happening alongside the siege occurs. I can't wait to see how all that is handled in that game. And it is Thunder on the Mississippi, so he apparently just missed it mere seconds ago. And I also bought some blank counters and other doodads from GMT because they had very good prices on that stuff. Unless counter trays were pretty much the regular price and more or less, and the empty boxes were more or less the regular price, but the blank counter sheets and bags of blocks and stuff like that were dirt cheap, and I bought several of them. I will do something with them. I don't know what. So as Marty is clarifying, Decision has that space every year, and they're there the entire week, and otherwise that dealer's room is only the dealer's room starting on Thursday. Earlier in the week, it's actually filled with people playing games. So, and John C. mentions Enterprise Games. I don't know about Thunder on the Mississippi is on pre-order. So I would expect that to start shipping basically any time. So if you want the pre-order price on that, I would hop over to MMP right now, like tonight, and order it. So in any case, I've only been this is like the second time I've been there. So I have never seen Enterprise Games there, but that doesn't mean a thing. So let's see what we're doing here. Right now I'm working on the abandoned transport counters. Yeah, very good. And these are what, air support? They're the men at work counters. Anyway, so. Oh, nice. Very nice. I imagine they're going to start shipping it basically as soon as they get back from WBC. So actually, I'm not positive about that. They may end up shipping the ASL stuff and the magazine first. I'm hearing other people got the Roadster Rangoon set. So if Marty doesn't have Alexander was not there. I did run into Grant, so it's good to see him again. Alexander could not make it due to a family event. And I believe that, unfortunately, we may have given Alexander a complex over his sartorial choices. And I hate that. I want flamboyance from him. So bring back the leopard print horrific shirts, please. In any case, Marty says he doesn't remember Enterprise being there, and John C. says they were there 1 year. I can ask Don about that. That's possible. Don would like to come back to BGF, but I'm not sure that's happening. I think there's a conflict with the new location. So this sounds good. So Scott Rowland got his Road to Rangoon a couple days ago. I think that's what they're actually shipping now. So my expectation would be that they will finish shipping that, and then they will start shipping out Thunder on the Mississippi. Nobody told me that. That's just a guess. So, and I see Molotov Cockatiel. Yes, I want flaming garb from Alexander. So, I mean, there's a bunch of people that could have been too. Who knows? Who knows? So, in any case, did I buy anything else? Yes, I did, and I'm going to grab it. Actually, it's not a war game, but it's interesting enough that I'm going to show it off. So in the middle of the dealer's room, there's this like odds and ends dealer that sells a lot of dice. They have an excellent dice selection, actually, and a variety of other ding-dongs and things like that. And then on the other side of their booth, they have a variety of miscellaneous games. Last year, I bought a very hard-to-get RuneQuest piece from them. This year, I bought Bushido. There is no role-playing activity occurring at WBC on the books as far as I'm aware. This is the original boxed set from Fantasy Games Unlimited, and while the box is not in great shape, it was $30, so I'm happy to pay that for a really quite interesting game. And I will also point out that Paul Hume and Bob Sherritt would eventually become the designers of Shadowrun. So they started working with FASA and or Fantasy Games Unlimited. So in any case, all right, Perfidious Albion says that Rose de Rangoon is part 2 of the Burma series. The first was To the Bridge. Good, because I have that one. So Scott Bell was not there this year. That's too bad. Scott, please. Well, I plan to come back next year. So we need some water here. Now, what coming back next year actually looks like in practice is a decision that won't get made for a while. So one of the other things too, and I've had this happen a few times. I always think it's cool when you buy this used game and the first thing you see in the box is somebody's old characters. I think that's awesome. So that happened with something else as well. And I don't know if I mentioned it last week or not, and I'm not grabbing it because I already left the room once. But I scored a copy of the Ringworld RPG on eBay for $79 and change plus shipping, which is a very good price for that. Its box is in even worse shape than this, but I think it might be repairable, and frankly, I think this box might be repairable too. I will, if I do a repair on it, I might do a video on how to repair blown corners on boxes. I think we are all comfortable doing that. I don't like to just tape them. I mean, you can. I don't like to just tape them. I like to actually repair them so it's hard to see that they've been repaired. And I don't use any equipment more complicated than some wax paper or plastic, some white glue, and some binder clips, and maybe a little brush or pair of tweezers or something like that to apply glue in a controlled way. Stigler, I'd be delighted to do this. We can maybe have this conversation. So I guess, I tell you what, we'll talk about this when we get back from our temporary break, while we hear from the sponsor of the Counterclipping Show, our good friends at Noble Knight Games. So take it away, Noble Knight.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, so thanks again to Noble Knight for being the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show. And don't forget that we are running a campaign to pick up. I'll show the thing for it. I don't have new information, but our current Noble Knight campaign is the campaign for the SPI quads, or not the quads. We might do that too at a later time. This is the SPI soapboxes that I don't have already and that I want. There's at least one that I just don't want, and there's 2 other ones that I don't need because I have the components that I want from them already. These are the 5 that I needed going into this campaign. We have obtained 1 already, the Art of Siege. We are waiting for the credits and the additional stock to come in over at Noble Knight, frankly. So if you use the affiliate link and buy stuff that you were probably going to buy anyway from Noble Knight, I will get a little bit of a kickback in the form of store credit, and that is where the store credit is going. So there we go. So once again, thanks for Noble Knight, and thanks to everybody who has used the affiliate link as well. We are aware that you don't get any feedback that says your credits have been applied to so-and-so's affiliate plan. I'd like to see that change, and I've passed that along, but I don't know that that's not a necessarily trivial change for them to do. So it has been passed along as a suggestion for the future. But in the meantime, the affiliate thing has gone so well that I'm sure they're not cheating me. Let me put it that way. So in any case, all right. So next year's convention. So the annual convention loadout for me sounds like February is Winterfest, which is moving, by the way, to Strongsville, Ohio from Sandusky, to a pretty similar looking hotel, but I haven't seen that hotel yet. So there we go. There's Buckeye Game Fest is the next event after that. After that is Origins. And then we have whatever commitment I have to WBC. And then we have this year, we have in past years, the other event has been Compass Expo. This year it's going to be SD HistCon. So which is an expensive event to go to because it's in San Diego. But we are going this year, at least according to plan. Next year, however, it has occurred to me that I probably, and remember there are 2 Compass Expos now, one in November and one in May. But the one in May is almost a non-starter. It would be between other big events. I just don't think that's going to ever happen. It occurs to me I would really like to go to Tempe. I would probably have to ditch 2 events to make it to Tempe. One of those events would probably the most expensive event that I went to this year. All expenses considered, which includes the shopping, was Buckeye Game Fest. And the reason for that is the hotel room. The hotel room was more expensive at Origins, but it was fewer nights, and I had somebody to split it with. At Buckeye Game Fest, I didn't have anybody to split it with, and it was like $1,000. So I did relatively little shopping. So, I mean, Buckeye Game Fest was basically, I had to rent a car too, which also it adds $350 to the cost of the trip. That's a factor. That also happened with Origins, by the way. So these are pretty expensive trips. So I will run budget numbers for the year's conventions before Winterfest to see what it looks like. It is possible for me to make it out to Tempe, and if I do, Stigler, I'm totally ringing you up. I'm taking you up on that kind offer. But I probably won't know until something like January. Buckeye Game Fest was about $190 with all the fees and stuff per night. I think without the fees, it's like $170, and you're paying about another $20 a night in head tax or whatever that's called. So it's expensive. Well, that's true, but then you got to pay to fly, right? So I mean, if I had a car to take to Buckeye Game Fest or Origins, then the cost is like 2/3 of a tank of gas, right? So like transport costs turns into like $30 or $40 as opposed to the $300 to $400 it cost me to rent a car both times. So this is a possibility. It's also possible for me to do a longer stint at WBC. What I think I would be inclined to do, however, for next year, is to try and do Tempe and then pivot to WBC as like a long-term thing, because it's just way closer. It's just way easier to deal with. The convention hotel there is not a ton cheaper than the Tempe Convention Hotel, but I don't have to fly, right? It's half a tank of gas to get there. So, I don't know. I mean, 12 hours. Remember, it's a week-long event, right? So you if you go, yes, it's basically your day, but you can go and spend several days out there, basically as long as you want, and relax and take your time getting back. It's kind of where I'm going with that. So, well, now, yes, this happened like 2 weeks ago. So I imagine this is true, but it's still going to be a few $100s to fly. So Marty says the WBC hotel is $160 a night all in. And the condo prices, at least, so my buddy that we stayed with did not go through the official condos. He went through Airbnb or some similar service. So bear that in mind. He paid a price that was comparable to what the hotel costs. But he's also 10 minutes away, right? Or if they don't have shuttle running at that time, it's a 2-hour walk, which I'll be like, no, fuck that. There's no way I'm doing that. So, yeah, for a convention, that's kind of where I was going with that. Because the convention is so long, I don't think the 9 to 12 hour drive is as big a deal as it might otherwise be. Even if I was driving that by myself, what I would do is break that up. I would drive 4 hours, stop, rest, possibly take a nap. Hour or two later, start driving again. And if it takes me 15 hours to take the 12-hour drive, I'm okay with that. So, in any case. So, Warriors of England is a War of the Roses game. Jeff Taylor says that WBC is his favorite con. Couldn't make it this year because family vacation. Jeff, I will be reaching out to you in the probably next few weeks about a thing that will be going on locally. Also, we may have some ArtyCon 2025 news that may be developing as well over the next 6 months or so. But we probably won't hear anything definitive about that until at least February. So just on that. So in any case. All right. So I did get to play. We're going to talk about OCS and features of OCS now, because there are a bunch of signature features that I think are the things that people reach for when talking to people about OCS. But those, curiously, are not necessarily the things that Dean himself pointed out that he felt were the novel things about OCS. So we are at this point talking about a game system that got started in the early 90s, so it has been around for 35 plus years. It has been very successful by all reasonable standards of account. It is a thriving series over at MMP. We get a game every year or two, and we got one. The latest one is, of course, OCS Luzon. This is true. If you do the condo thing, you can mitigate the food costs. So the food costs are, Hexy, thanks for stopping by. The food costs are, the food there is, in terms of quality, hit and miss. Some of it's okay. The Mexican stand, for example, I thought was fairly lousy and quite expensive. It's like $25 for a burrito bowl that was worse than the $8, $9 burrito bowl from Chipotle. Captive audience and all that. The pizza, on the other hand, I thought was fairly good. However, let me not put too fine a point on this and not give everybody way more information than they thought they were getting tonight. I should not eat pizza more than 2 days in a row. Let's put it that way. So I did that, and it was a problem. That was another contributing factor to the decision to decide to come home a little bit early. There was an ice cream place, which I didn't get the ice cream. I got the tiny mini cheesecake, and it was pretty good. So I would concur with this. It's edible, but it is pricey. There's a breakfast buffet that's like $18, but that's not bad for a buffet, in my opinion. But I didn't try that. I literally this year, what did we eat there? I ate the pizza at the pizza. I got the little pepperoni roll too, but that's like the only thing I got was on site was the pizza. We ate breakfast off site because we were driving in anyway. There is a country skillet place or something like that. That's in maybe Fucko remembers exactly where it was, like Indian Knob, Pennsylvania, or something like that. That's not too far away from where we were, and then we ate that and drove in, and it was pretty good, and it was pretty cheap. I hear the food's good. Yukon, no way. If I was going up to Michigan for a convention, it would be to Chaos, where my life is right now. It would be to Chaosium Con, which is another convention that I have wanted to go to for a couple of years. And there was just no way it was happening this year. And I'll run the numbers at the beginning of the year, but it looks goddamn unlikely this year too. So Indian Head, PA, there you go. So I would agree. I mean, again, I agree with what Marty says here too. It is what it is. You can't really blame the hotel for the prices being high. You are out in the middle of nowhere. And if you want to go somewhere to eat, you're driving probably 20 minutes. Molotov Cockatiel, it's in Ann Arbor. So I will, of course, wear a funny hat, a trench coat, and a false mustache if I were to go there, because I'm contractually obligated to do those things. And I believe this year was their second or third year. It has not been happening all that long, but it looks like a good convention. If you're into their games, which I am. So there's that. Anyway, So one of the thing that everybody highlights about OCS, coming in and describing it to people, tends to be the supply system, right? And the trace supply, although it's a little noodly, is not really anything that's particularly strange. You're tracing well, it is a little bit unusual in a way. I mean, ultimately, it's just trace, right? So it's not like that out of the box for a standard war game supply mechanic. However, you are generally speaking not tracing supply from the unit back to a supply source. You are instead throwing supply from a headquarters to the unit. That is a subtle difference, but it makes more of a difference than you might think. And as Hexy points out, you have the adjacent is close enough rule, which you don't have in BCS, I will add. And I have 100% leveraged adjacent is close enough to get guys in supply that would otherwise be hosed. So Scott Rowland needs to get back to learning OCS. I think we need to do a tutorial video again, which I have a prospect or victim, if you like, to do that with. So, it's just a matter of making it work based on everybody's busy schedule. On the other hand, trace is not all of the supply in OCS. And then the headquarters will trace back to an ultimate supply source, by the way, which will either be a map edge or a detrainable hex or something like that. Most of the time. In Luzon, it's specific hexes on the map that you will trace back to. All right. We got... might as well get started on these. These are the American IP units, improved positions, and entrenchments on the back. And I might actually get all these done because I blow through these are 5/8" counters. I blow through these on this show. I've been known to clip 3 sheets on the show of 5/8" counters. So, but as I mentioned, the trace supply, which remember wasn't originally in the game. Originally, everybody ate off the map, which will, at least that's what it's called now. So when the attrition phase happens, or the supply phase, I should say, which is when attrition occurs, if there's going to be attrition, and that happens in your turn. So the way that works is there's a movement. I'm boiling this down, so I'm not giving you all the phases in the sequence of play, but there's a movement phase, there's a supply phase, there's a reaction phase, and then there's a combat phase. And then after all of that, there's an exploit phase. And in exploit, you can activate reserves as well. So you do all your moving, and if at the end of movement you are not in supply, not in trace supply, then you can do what OCS calls eating off the map, which means that you can consume on-map supply points to keep the units in supply and keep them from experiencing attrition. There is... No, maybe if Carl has some info about but I'm not sure he would, because he's not in charge of TCS. But there was a little bit of noise for the first time that I remember hearing in a long time about a new TCS Omaha Beach. Other than that, I'm not aware of anything coming from MMP dealing with Omaha Beach. So. All right. Then I'm wrong. Carl is in charge of TCS. That's awesome. Carl, is there any noise on Omaha Beach or Omaha Beach Part 2, as the case may, whatever it might be? Carl says it's still a possibility, and I'd like to see it. I'll buy it if they want to do. At this point, it's been so long since the first one that the whole thing needs a facelift. So I'd kind of like to see the entire beach, both infantry divisions, coming in one huge package, but that would be a huge package at that point. GTS Omaha Beach, that's true. They're working on this, but I expect this to be a few years away yet, frankly. And I agree with Jeff Beeler on, So it's in the pipeline, but I mean, took a while for Utah to get done. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect this for at least 2 years. That's a guess. That's not based on any information. Carl, I'll be happy to be contradicted. So what am I thinking of then? TCS Omaha is both divisions. It's the whole landing, and I'll take Doug's word for this because he's played it and I haven't. So yeah, if somebody wants to redo that, I'll be delighted to buy it. Let me put it that way. The good news is that within Compass Expo walking distance, it is literally right next door, and it is very good. The downside of Nardelli's is it's not open on Sunday, which kind of sucks if you're there on Sunday. All right, and Carl has clarified my incorrect statement about that too. I might be actually thinking bizarrely of the Critical Hit Omaha Beach product. That's possible. And that's Doug mentions that as well. So don't listen to me. Anyway, I agree with Jeff Beeler that Smolensk is the best one-stop OCS learner game because it has all of the things in it. So back to supply, OCS supply, however. So you've got your trace supply. And if you're not in trace supply at the moment where you calculate for supply, which is only that one time, unless they get in combat, then there's another variable. We'll talk about combat supply in a minute here. Then you have to eat off the map, or you have to suffer attrition, which means there's an attrition table. And based on your role and your AR, your action rating, you may suffer losses up to and including elimination of said units. Okay, and you roll by stack, not by individual units. You're going to roll against the unit with the best AR in the stack. Okay. Multi-Cocktail says that place up the street. You're talking about the Asian place that we went to? Because that place was pretty decent, if that's the place you're talking about. And there's other good stuff to eat around there too. It's just not necessarily. And don't forget, there's a Dunkin' Donuts across the street. And I ate breakfast at that Dunkin' Donuts most days because, frankly, I thought the breakfast buffet was pretty bad. Even this year, and this year it was better than the previous year. The previous year, it was literally microwavable sandwiches. This year, it was an actual hotel breakfast thing, but I thought it was pretty bad. I was more happy to go across the street and get Dunkin' Donuts. I actually like Dunkin' Donuts food. And actually, their iced coffee is okay. I don't like their hot coffee at all. So Critical Hit has made some interesting creative choices. Let's put it that way. All right. So beyond trace supply, however, you also have to be able to maintain the supply network. All right. Which is a chain of things going from the ultimate supply source via a rail or road net. Usually it's rail, but there are a couple games where it might be roads. To a detrainable hex, which could be an on-map detrainable hex, which are common, especially in the West Front, or it can be a hex on a rail line that has a combat mode HQ in it, okay? That makes the hex detrainable, all right? So the supply then, the trace supply then runs from the map edge supply source, usually it's a map edge anyway, along a rail line to a headquarters, and then the headquarters throws the trace supply to the units, all right? And the headquarters will have a better throw range if they are in combat mode versus in move mode. On top of that, sometimes the railnet just doesn't go as far as you needed to go. And that is where, and this happens a lot on the East Front, this is where extenders come in. Extenders are basically represent additional reach. So you're basically establishing this truck pipeline. The way you build an extender is to flip five transport units. Usually it's one counter, right? You can have a capacity on a transport unit, meaning either trucks or wagons. Some games have mules. And in some games you can eat the mules for supply points. And in some of the older ones, you may actually be able to eat the wagons. You can eat the horses that are dragging the wagons as well. Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds fun. It's once you get used to them, extenders are fine. I was kind of thrown into the furnace on extenders in Case Blue, which was my first OCS game. But I don't feel like I understood extenders until I played Smolensk. It was Smolensk that made it click for me. And that's just because it's a much more controlled extended situation. You can see early in the game that you will need an extender and you will need to make a decision about where that extender is going to go. But that is going to be obvious to you in the first 3 turns that you're going to, okay, I'm going to need an extender here. Where do I, in this general area, where exactly am I going to put that? And how is all the trace going to work? The extenders will allow you to operate further away from the rail net. This sounds fun, right? Okay, with bum fights outside, that's great. I've heard about this. There's a lot of board game cafes nowadays. There's one in Akron. There's at least 2 in Columbus. There's definitely one in Seattle, the Mox Boarding House, which is a pretty cool place. So in any event. So once you've got extenders talked about, then we have to talk about combat supply and movement supply. So you, as we mentioned, have these supply points that are actual counters that are on the map and that come in at specific places, and you then move them around from there. In more recent titles, they've kind of tended to materialize a little closer to the action. So the trucking around of supplies is less of a factor than it used to be in some of the more up-to-date games. You might specifically look at Third Winter for this, but also at Hungarian Rhapsody. And Forgotten Battles will feature it as well. So what do you use the supply points for? There are basically 2 things that you spend supply for. One is for combat supply. Both attackers and defenders need to spend supply to fight at full efficiency. There are ways around it. A defender, for example, can go on if they don't have supply available. If they have supply available, they either have to spend the supply to fight at full, or they go unsupplied for the defense and they fight at half strength. The attacker cannot, well, if they don't have supply available, however, they can choose to fight on internal stocks, which gives them a low ammo, and they become then like the top priority to remove that low supply status marker. Okay. And you must resupply them. You can't just ignore it. If you supply it, if they're on low stocks, they must be resupplied if supply is available. The attacker must spend generally more supply. Defender supply is generally 2 tokens. So you have supply points, and then each supply point can be broken down into 4 tokens. The defender can combat supply their units with a maximum of 2 tokens. And if they are like less than an RE, a regimental equivalent, basically meaning that they are a battalion or smaller, or I think just 1 regiment, you can supply them with 1 token. Any more forces than that, 2 tokens is it. On the other hand, attacker supply, combat supply, you have to spend 1 token per attacking step, which in some cases is like, if it's an infantry division with 4 steps, that's a whole supply point right there. In addition to that, you spend supply points to move units that require fuel. And you can do this either individually, or you can pay by formation, where you can spend 1 supply point to fuel an entire multi-unit formation. Usually this is like a Panzer division or a Soviet Mech Corps or something like that. They're counters. I mean, they're counters. They're just supply T, as we call them. They're a quarter of a supply point. Or you can, you must, I should say, if you want to move anything that's mechanized. So anything that has either truck or tracked movement type, you must spend supply to move them at all, but there's a loophole, as there so often is. The loophole is that, so you at the moment that you move them, you decide whether they're fueled or not, okay? And you can fuel the most efficient way to fuel mechanized units is to fuel a headquarters. And then any independent mechanized units within the throw range of that headquarters can be fueled for the duration of the movement phase. Okay. This does not include combat supply. It's just for movement. You can also fuel a single multi-unit formation for 1 SP supply point, but that supply is considered to last not just for the movement phase, but for the entire turn until the cleanup phase. So you might end up fueling somebody in movement, and then if they have exploit or if they end up in reserve, then they're still fueled when the reserve and exploitation happens, okay? And if you fuel it, I should say, if you fuel something in the opponent's, how exactly does this break down? If you fuel a multi-unit formation in the opponent's reserve reaction, in your reaction phase in the opponent's turn, then it's still fueled when it's your turn again, okay? I think I said that correctly. And you must supply artillery barrages as well. Artillery costs, and you must spend supply to refit air units. That I think is going to end up going away. I think it's just going to be kind of worked in where the air units, so many air units automatically refit. And then that's that. And it's already accounted for, basically. I think that's where they're going with the series. It is very dissimilar from Campaign for North Africa in every respect, except the fact that there is on-map supply. But unlike CNA, where there's 3 different kinds of on-map supply, in OCS, there's just supply. It's everything. It's guns, butter, and everything, okay? So I will say that for the sake of clarification. And I've done several sort of instructional playthroughs of this, so go check those out if you want. And we're just talking about supply right now. We're not talking about any of the other novel and sometimes very subtle features of OCS, like supply and fog of war, right? Or even the rounding rules is another one. So, and Carl's not looking to update the OCS series rules. So there you go. And it doesn't really need it, right? I mean, there's no good reason to make any substantial changes to the OCS rules at this point. They are polished to an absolutely mirror finish. And if there's something you don't like about them, that's a different thing to say. But maybe what you do is just go find a different game system. Then that's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody's going to like OCS. Nope. It's not nearly as much paperwork as Starfleet Battles has paperwork. OCS has no paperwork. There's just tokens. There's supply points on the map that you have to spend to do things, right? And I'll be honest, Perfidious Albion. I get that this is funny, but I have played a great deal of OCS, and I have never seen a laptop used to keep track of supply. There are artillery arguments that OCS does spawn, and we might talk about that too. But that is a different problem. And part of that is the supply dynamic too, right? So there's some arguments going back and forth about exactly what TCS Omaha includes here. I've never played it. I do have it. I'm not going to go get it and examine it right now. So let me put it that way. Mark G is almost ready to play Sicily too. You know what, though? You don't really need to worry too much about the naval and landing rules because you're only using them at the beginning of the game. Or you can skip it because there are scenarios that just skip it. So now, Fed Empire is way paperwork heavier than Starfleet Battles is. That's absolutely right. So, in addition to the combat supply, you do need to spend supply to move units, and as mentioned in the chat, you need to use supply points to fire artillery units. This is one of the things that people complain about the most about OCS, more so than the fact that you have individual supply points on the map that you need to track. Because too many people, let me say that in a different cadence. To many people, OCS artillery fire seems overly expensive. I believe this to be a misunderstanding to some extent. All right. So there's basically, in addition to regular combat, in OCS, you have barrage, okay? And what barrage generally is used to do is to put units in a disorganized state. Yes, it can do step losses, but consider yourself lucky to get the step losses. If you don't get the step losses, but you do get the DG, you should be completely satisfied. It is the DG that you're going for, and the step losses are a bonus if you get them. There are three ways if you count naval barrages, but most OCS games do not include naval barrages, so we're going to just skip it. It works exactly like air barrages do, for the most part. It is easier to do step losses barraging with artillery than it is barraging with air units, like tactical aircraft, okay? However, if you realize that what you're really going for is the DG, then you know what? That's fine. That's what you were going for with the air. And the air is way more efficient, right? Because if you have the tactical planes with the barrage factors available, then all the planes at the air base can be refreshed at the beginning of the turn for the low cost of 1 token. Where a decent barrage might cost you a whole SP, and a big barrage might cost you 2 or even 3 SP, okay? So, it feels inefficient to barrage with artillery. But what this really, and you usually have a lot of artillery units to work with, and they kind of feel like filler. But what this really means is that you have to be selective about what you use the artillery on, the artillery barrages, okay? If you can DG units with air, cool, you can. Sometimes you just can't. And usually the planes, the factors break down such that there's more barrage factors from an artillery barrage than there is from an air barrage. Usually there's exceptions to that too. And you can always throw multiple planes in. But that then you run the increased risk of getting one of the planes shot down. So Carl clarifies that first TCS game was Bloody 110, then Objective Schmidt, then Omaha. That's how I remember it. It was one of the very early TCS games, however. So you do have to be careful. You can't just be barraging everything or you'll blow all your supply, but sometimes you need to use artillery, right? And part of the play experience in OCS is knowing when to use artillery versus when an air barrage will suffice. If it is a critical attack, or if you have a heavily overstacked target hex, or if it is a city and it's always going to be expensive anyway, then you might as well just resign yourself to spending an SP or 2 to fuel the barrage, because you're probably going to spend at least 3 other SP on the infantry attack anyway. Especially, this is a Soviet tactic, right? I mean, the Germans have to do it sometimes too, but the Soviets will often take strongly held positions with large quantities of infantry. They're paying by steps rather than by combat factors, but it's still expensive, right? I mean, the Germans even need to do this in some cases in Blitzkrieg Legend, for example. Force Eagles War was kind of like a side series, like a modern TCS, and it's the only game they ever did on it. So, and this is 100% true, right? Part of this is because I have not tried to do a study on this to determine if my belief here is accurate. But like I said before, the OCS rulebook is incredibly clear, concise. You know where everything is. It's well organized. There's an excellent index and an excellent table of contents. And it is easy to be spoiled by how strongly done that rulebook is. But that didn't just magically materialize out of the wargaming ether either, right? It is the way it is because Dean and others spent many years polishing and massaging those rules into a polished masterpiece. So can't wait for this, Carl. So just bring it, shut up and take my money type of thing. So, I mean, I'd love for this to be the case. Don't get me wrong. And if it ever becomes the case, I am all for naming it after Dean. But, part of the reason why this rule book is as strong as it is just that it's been through the ringer so many times and in so many games. There's 20 plus games now, right? So So sometimes you got to bite the bullet and pay for the artillery barrage. I know you don't want to, and there are some OCS games will give you some number of free barrages up to so many points. That's a fairly common game-specific rule in OCS, but that's usually not enough to make a huge difference. Let me put it that way. I did leverage it to my advantage in the third in Forgotten Battles, however, where it was like needed. I'm not sure I have much else to say about supply, but it is one of the signature and the best known signature feature of OCS. But there are other features of OCS, some of which are unique to OCS, and one that isn't, and which is another thing that a lot of people will express their dislike of, and that is the way initiative works. So the way initiative works in OCS is there's a first player turn and a second player turn inside the game turn, okay? And every turn, except sometimes, unless there's a special rule or usually the first turn of the game, it'll tell you who goes first. Sometimes the first two turns. So what this means is that every other turn, you're going to roll the dice, and whoever rolls higher wins. There are generally no modifiers to this roll. It's a straight up roll. If there's a tie, you re-roll. So somebody's going to go first and somebody's going to go second. The side that wins the initiative gets to decide whether they're going to go first or whether they're going to go second. Now, what this means is, like in Third Reich, which might have been the first game to do this, you have the chance to go twice in a row. You can go second in one turn, and in the following turn, you might go first. That's what we call the double turn. And when employed at the right time, it can be very decisive. But you can't waste double turn. You don't want to waste double turns either, right? So it becomes dramatic for people, right, to say whether I'm going to give you the ability to go first, or I'm going to take the turn because I want the double turn. All right. So sometimes, and you don't always have that choice, right? Sometimes you went last on the next turn, but the other side wins the initiative and they hand you the double turn, which sounds great. But if you weren't positioned to take advantage of that double turn, then it's merely nice, right? And not a decisive, huge blow. So people will, experienced OCS players will typically be super duper conservative about when they choose to take their double turn, right? Because they won the initiative and they want the double turn. Very often they'll hand it back to the other player. There's a whole dynamic about this in OCS, and it's an absolutely fascinating dynamic. And part of getting good at OCS is knowing when that you want to take the double turn versus you want to hand it back to the other player. Because handing it back to the other player sets you up to take a double turn later. And you always want to have a double turn. It's just a matter of when, right? If you're not positioned to take an optimal double turn, then you want to hand it to the other guy or other person, I should say. Tabletop's Edge, Doug mentions action ratings and surprise. And I'm actually saving surprise for last. But action rating is another key critical component. So it's not quite accurate to call it unit proficiency. There's a reason it's not called that, and it's called action rating instead. How much time we got? About 25 minutes. We definitely need more whiskey. Anyway, but unit proficiency is a factor, and if there is a single most important number on the counter when going into combat with a unit, it's not the combat factors, it's the action rating. Now, not to say that the combat factor is not important or the unit type is not important, it absolutely can be, and those can be big factors too, particularly if you're doing things like attacking with armor in the open. That's a big deal. But ultimately, what the action rating ties into the surprise rule. And the surprise rule is what Dean felt was the most innovative and novel thing in OCS. And having played a lot of OCS now, I actually kind of agree. So what this is, and it's one of those things where you look at the rule and say, and then maybe you look at the CRT and say, oh, this can't work. This is stupid. There's no way this works. It totally does. And I said the same thing. I'm like, bullshit. This is nonsense. So what surprise is you basically have an action rating differential. So you have an AR4 attacker attacking an AR2 defender, say. So you have an action rating differential of +2. And alongside that combat roll, technically you roll it first, but I've never seen experienced OCS players do it this way. We just roll 5 dice at a time. 3 of those dice are the surprise roll. Okay, so you got 2 white dice. You could pick the colors. It's not in the book this way. Pick your own colors. I don't care. Typically, the way I will roll is I will roll 2 white dice, 2 red dice, and 1 die of a different color. Usually it's black. Sometimes it's green or blue. The 2 white dice are the surprise roll. If that die roll is high enough, and you add that action rating differential as a die roll modifier, if it's high enough, the attacker will get surprise. If it's low enough, the defender will get surprise. So if you have a high action rating defender defending against a low action rating attacker, you will tend to see defender surprise. Or if I'm attacking, you will tend to see defender surprise. I will not stop harping about this. It was an actual shit show. Carl, thanks for stopping by. Anyway. And what that third die is, that off-color die is, it is the number of surprise column shifts you will get in one direction or the other. And that means you can get up to from 1 to 6 extra column shifts from your native odds on the combat table. Okay, and this is huge. It's absolutely huge. But usually there isn't surprise, unless I'm rolling, in which case, if I'm attacking, there will be defender surprise. And I'm pleased to say that in the OCS lose-on game, I was defending, and sometimes there was defender surprise. But fucko was rolling the dice, so I usually, if I'm touching the dice, usually it's a disaster. Green Label, very nice, very nice. 60th birthday, happy birthday, Mr. Reed. 5th, 10 years ago with business partners on site. Yeah, Green Label is, as I recall, assuming we're talking about the Johnny Walker Green, then that is what used to be called a pure malt. So it's a blend, but it's all malt whiskey and no grain whiskey. And usually it's a little peatier than the regular stuff too. So I would love to try it. I'm not sure that I have actually tried it. So excellent choice. I like Johnny Walker. I mean, you don't drink the red neat. It's not for that. Don't do that. But black is great neat, frankly. Or on the rocks, and it's not so expensive that you might feel compelled to not drink it on the rocks, even if that's your preference. Johnny Walker Black is a fabulous all-purpose Scotch whiskey. It has Scotch character. It's got a little bit of smokiness to it, not too much if you're scared of this smokiness. I like the smokiness, so. And hell, I like a good margarita as well. So I like the double black even better. Yeah, but it is a little more expensive. So red is fine. For if I was going to drink, like if I was going to buy rocks Scotch, frankly, I would probably buy Dewar's over Johnny Walker Red. But there's nothing wrong if you're making cocktails with Scotch or something like that. There's nothing wrong with Johnny Walker Red. That's literally what it's for. So, Talisker, Craigenmore, and Kalila. I love Kalila. Kalila is my favorite Scotch. So probably my second favorite is Ledaig, but I can't get that in Ohio. I can get Kalila in Ohio. So I don't have, this is a problem. I got to fix this problem. I don't have any Kalila at the moment. I do have Lefroy, and I've got three different bottles of Lefroy. So it's not like I'm low on peated Scotch. Do I have anything else? That Talisker is also excellent. That's from the Isle of Skye. I do have some Bowmore, which is peated, but it's not as heavily peated as Kalila or Lefroy, that's for sure. Or Ardbeg. Whistlepig Rye. I'm not sure I've had the Whistlepig Rye. I've had the bourbon. I had a flight of Whistlepig tastings in Seattle when I was in Seattle a couple years ago. It was good. It was very good. I liked it. And am I full of shit? Do I have a bottle of Whistlepig? I do have a bottle of Whistlepig. But it's upstairs at the moment, so I can't tell you anything about it. So in any case, so again, the surprise rule is a rule that it feels really weird and feels like it can't possibly work. And yet, if you combine it with the way the action rating works and the way the roll works mechanically, and then you combine it on that table where the difference of one column doesn't necessarily make a big difference, but 6 columns will damn well make a big difference, then it actually does in fact work. And it replicates a really cool effect where, you know, a proficient force defending can ambush an incoming attacker. Also, there are overrun attacks in OCS, which happen in the movement phase as opposed to happening in the combat phase. And they work basically just like regular attacks, with a couple exceptions. You can't get exploit from them, but it's also easier to get surprise in either direction on an overrun attack because you're attacking on the move. So it's easier for you, the attacker, to either catch the defender flat-footed and get surprise in your favor, or get ambushed and get a big defender surprise against you. See also my game of Forgotten Battles last year as the Soviets, where I rolled an obscene number. As the attacker, I rolled an obscene number of defender surprises. And, you know, bear in mind, action rating is a huge factor here, right? Even a +1 will throw the odds noticeably toward you or against you for surprise one way or the other. So it makes a big difference. Hip shoots I wasn't even going to get into. I have actually tried Japanese whiskey, but it was at a Pennsic years ago, and I'm not sure what it was. I liked it. I also have tried a French single malt scotch called Bastille or La Bastille, which is awful. So we were referring to the rest of that bottle as hand me some of that French prison whiskey. And yes, I know what the Bastille is, but that's how we called it. So red is fine on the rocks, but Dewar's is cheaper, and Dewar's is also fine on the rocks. Mixed with Drambuie, yeah, sure, why not? And there are also Scotch, like Scotch cordials, that some people like, and I tend not to. So I love Scotch. So some people don't like Scotch. And I get that. Not everybody's going to like everything I like. That's to assume that everybody should like all the stuff that I like is fucking weird. So there you go. Okay. But I like what I like. You like what you like. It's all good, right? As long as nobody's hurting each other, it's all fine. There are hip shoots. So hip shoots are basically like a repeatable air mission where normally you send in the air mission, and if the air mission fails, well, that's it. You can't send another air mission in. Hip shoots are the exception. They happen in the movement phase, so you can do them as sort of in an interactive way with movement. And this is another critical skill to becoming good at OCS, is sequencing things. How do you run your sequencing? Because if you're doing overruns, and a unit like a Panzer division is very frequently going to be considering at least overruns, you need to know when to do that, because you might be conducting the overrun to open the path for the other units that will just be moving. Okay. And it's much more frequent to see overruns with mobile units, but I have also seen overruns with infantry, right? But the thing with infantry is they typically have to start adjacent if they're going to overrun. I like bourbon, but I like American rye better, generally speaking, better than bourbon. I mean, we're not talking on an individual basis here. I generally speaking, so my personal whiskey, I'm a whiskey guy. I like whiskey the best. I have had good rum. I have had good tequila. I have had good gin, okay? But I am a whiskey guy, and I like to drink my whiskey and enjoy my whiskey. And my personal ladder of whiskey is Scotch at the top. Below Scotch is American rye. I love American rye. Below American rye is Irish whiskey. I like Irish whiskey too. Below that is bourbon. Bourbon is hit and miss for me. There's plenty of good bourbons. There's bourbons I don't like as much. This is a bourbon, and I like this. And below that is Canadian whiskey. Now, there is an experience factor involved in ranking them in this way. There are, as Mo can attest, there are excellent Canadian whiskeys that I can't get in Ohio. And presumably there are good Canadian whiskeys that I can get in Ohio. I just don't know what they are. So, I'm a bit stuck in that particular respect. But Mo brought an excellent Canadian, very inexpensive Canadian whiskey to Compass Expo last year, and I think the year before, and it's great. And I took a picture of it, so I can't tell you what it is. So I can look it up what it is, but I'm not going to be able to tell you what it is right now. OCS Korea is an excellent place to start with OCS, actually. It will teach you almost all of the things you need to know, and in kind of a way that kind of scales naturally with the conflict, because there's not that many forces available at the beginning of the game. Later on, when the Chinese come in, there can be a lot of stuff going on. Where's this even going? We're done clipping at this point. We are now going to bag some of these units, and we have about 11 minutes left in the show. So I am thrilled to sum up the OCS conversation. I am thrilled that I got to play OCS this past weekend, because I feel like I had played a lot of OCS for several years, and I was beginning to become okay at it. And if you like stay away, you'll lose those chops, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm glad I got to play OCS this weekend, even if it was a tiny OCS game, and it totally was. But it was a nice little refresher as well. So there's that. Yeah, we do not smoke in the house, anything in the house. I do have some cigars too, and they are one of the things that I am using to help me quit smoking the cigarettes. Because you can't just smoke, you can't just torch up a cigar wherever you want. It's got to be like a controlled place, right? I'm not going to smoke a cigar outside in the rain. I might burn down a cigarette outside in the rain. I also bought some pipe tobacco. That's been a pretty negative experience so far, I got to tell you, because I'm not very good at it. So there's that. And Stigler is being smart here, staying away from the tobacco in any way. Yes, that is the good move. OCS Crimea is also a pretty good introductory OCS game. The trouble with saying I like this game as an introductory OCS game is this game came out 5 years ago and now it's out of print and costs $300, and that's friggin' impractical. So what's available? Let's actually find out. Hold on a second. Let's go over to MMP and see what is available for OCS at this exact moment. All right, and please honor Dean's memory by contributing to his grandchildren if you can, too. So if we go to OCS, and there's only one OCS game on pre-order right now, and that is Forgotten Battles. So, sold out, sold out, sold out. Crimea is available. Hungarian Rhapsody is available. It is excellent. I don't really recommend it as a starter game. However, almost any OCS game has a large number of scenarios, and very good scenarios. So the only OCS game I'm aware of that doesn't have a lot of scenarios is actually Luzon. There's only the one, but there's only half a counter sheet and 5 turns. So there's only so much you can do with that footprint. Hungarian Rhapsody is kind of high end in the campaign as far as complexity goes of the game specific stuff. And it uses a supply system that's noticeably modified from the standard OCS supply system. So I don't recommend it as a first OCS game for that reason. Korea, on the other hand, is a pretty good OCS game, and a lot of people like it for that reason. We have the Luzon game, which is with operational matters. This includes a bunch of play aids to teach you OCS too. So right now, the best stepping on point, because of those play aids, is operational matters number 2 with Luzon. Sicily 2, which is, I think, still on pre-order, but it's going to be available again pretty soon, is also pretty good. It does have naval and air landings, and you do have to worry about that. But after the first turn or two, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Reluctant Enemies was designed by Curtis Baer as a discrete stepping on point, an intro kit to OCS, but that's been unavailable forever. All this stuff, Forgotten Battles, is, again, huge, but there is good scenario support. So you'll be able to play small scenarios. Is Third Winter, do they still have Third Winter? We're going to find out in a second. Third Winter's still available. I can tell you that MMP has very few copies of this left. Tunisia 2 is another one that is often hailed as a great OCS intro game. And again, it's been out of print for a while and it's kind of hard to get. You can actually use Tunisia 1 as an intro game, and it's actually not necessarily easier to get, but cheaper to get, certainly. All right. So, Mike, it's funny you should mention that, because for a long time, until I was approximately 45 years old, I chewed tobacco and didn't smoke. So for me, quitting chewing was the huge barrier. And I used a modest amount of cigarettes to help me quit that habit. But then when I picked it back up again, I'm not chewing, but I am smoking. So at least I'm not chewing. I would not count Social Dogma. Thanks for stopping by. I would not make any assumption in any case that MMP will reprint any particular game. That said, they do it from time to time. And in fact, this Operational Matters #1 with Sicily 2 in it is a reprint, right? So it does happen from time to time. I wouldn't count on it happening. Both Third Winter and Forgotten Battles are large, expensive games, but they also don't stray too far from like bog standard OCS mechanics unless you are playing the big campaigns. And they have plenty of small scenarios that are playable with the regular rules. So those will be good. I mean, they're big and expensive, so they might not be attractive intro games for that reason, but you can learn to play OCS with those games. James Whitmer asks, is it worth one's while to try to learn the original Guderian's Blitzkrieg? The answer to this is no. The original Guderian's Blitzkrieg, so there's a huge rules change. The single biggest rules change in the history of OCS is the rules change that happens between Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1 and the second game in the series, Enemy at the Gates. And that's trace supply. There isn't trace supply in Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1. Everybody eats off the map. So you cannot really use the current rules with Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1. It is possible by making a bunch of modifications to do it. I don't recommend that. I recommend playing Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1 if you want to play it for some reason with the rules that came in that box. And if you want to play that campaign, play Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 instead. Any other game in the series can be played with the current 4.3 rules. Except Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1, which you can only do that with significant difficulty, and I wouldn't recommend it. So the answer then becomes stick with the newer titles. Unless you have Guderian's Blitzkrieg 1, then maybe you try that, but then that's a bit of an unusual situation. Mike Reed points out that Korea is hard to simulate, and this is totally true. And I am not saying that OCS Korea is the best game on the Korean War. It flatly is not, but it is nevertheless a good OCS game and is fun to play and does a pretty good job of simulating the military side of that conflict. It just doesn't handle any of the other stuff. If you want the best, the gold standard in games about the Korean War is still Joe Belkowski's Korean War from Victory Games, now I believe still available from Compass in a nice reprint. Let's fix that. So yeah, the problem with GB1 is it'll teach you some things that you will then have to unlearn to move on to any other game in the series. So yeah, it's possible, not recommended. And you know, if you don't trust me on this, trust Carl. He's in charge of, not of OCS, but of some stuff, and he knows what he's talking about. So, and as Carl points out here, any other from Enemy at the Gates on can be any other OCS game can be played with the current rules. On the OCS support page on Multiman's site, there is a little like a guide to playing. Some modifications might have to be made to play some of the old games with the current rules, but they're all very minor modifications. OCS Korea is a 3-map game. That's true. But it's 3, and it's 1, 2, and 3. So if you have, say, 2.5 by 6 folding tables, you can totally fit OCS Korea on that. And generally, until like the last few games, OCS games have been very minimalist in terms of off-map footprint, in terms of additional displays and stuff like that. Third Winter and Crimea and Hungarian Rhapsody do have some off-map displays. Hungarian Rhapsody, by the way, is 2 maps. Craig Alexander, no, but I probably should do a show on Goss. And so every once in a while, we might close with this. Every once in a while, there we go. I will feel like the show is getting stale. And I will try and come up with a new thing, a new type of show to do. That's not to say that I won't do any of the old types of shows, like the loose discussions or the countdown shows or anything like that, but it adds something new to the mix. So the new thing that I'm adding to the mix is this kind of, I don't know how to brand this yet, but this is how we did it tonight, is kind of a closer look at a specific game system and talking about some of the salient features of that game system. So it is entirely possible that Goss will make that list because I have played some Goss and I like Goss. Jeff Beeler says, OCS Hungarian Rhapsody is the best generic OCS game available right now. Does it have small learning scenarios? It does have small learning scenarios. I'm not sure what you mean by generic, however. Let me tell you that. But yeah, no, you can totally pick the small scenarios and it works fine. Like I said, any OCS game has a good to great scenario selection. Eric Goebel, thank you so much for the support. It is much appreciated. Mike Reed mentions that the Victory Games version of the Korean War is a little easier to deal with because of footprint. The Victory Games version is 2 maps, and basically there's no off-map footprint. The Compass Games version is 3 maps, and there are, I believe, some off-map displays. I might be misremembering that. Nevertheless, I have the space for them, so I'll play the Compass one. And I actually don't have the Victory Games version of the Korean War. I only have the Compass one. Sicily 2 does have a tutorial included in the Operations magazine, but it doesn't have any of the extra play aids that will help you to learn some of the nuts and bolts of the series. That's why I would recommend Luzon instead. Sicily 2 is a fantastic game, don't get me wrong. By all means, get it. But Luzon is a little better on-ramp right now because of those play aids. So, and I will just reiterate my position that MMP should make those play aids available somehow. Whether they want to print them and sell them, fine, or make them available in digital form and you can just download them. And not the whole game, just the play aids, just the player aid cards. All right, Victory Games Korean War might be easier and cheaper to acquire because those Victory Games were generally printed in pretty good quantities. So Mike B, thanks for stopping by. We will definitely, I think, revisit this. I think this has been a successful experiment. I think it took a little longer than I wanted to kind of get to it, but that's because we had WBC and the big GMT update in the way. I will not be doing a show about Combat Commander. And furthermore, the natural show for me to do about Combat Commander, because of what I like and what I don't, is a show about why I hate Combat Commander. And I'm not going to do that show. I am not going to dedicate a whole show to stuff I don't like. I'm just not going to. I think everybody knows at this point that I am not particularly shy or bashful about telling you if I don't like something, but I'm not going to fixate on that. I've got limited time like everybody else. So, in any case, what was wrong with Tunisia 1? There were some order of battle problems, as I recall. There was a significant revision between Tunisia 1 and Tunisia 2. I think Tunisia 2 is the superior game, but for learning OCS, Tunisia 1 is just as good, and you might be able to get it way cheaper. Sicily, there's a complete difference between Sicily 1 and Sicily 2. They are different games, flatly different games. Sicily Triumph and Sicily Triumph and Folly, the first Sicily game, I think it's a terrific game, but it's a big 2-map Sicily game. Sicily 2 is a 1-map Sicily game with about half as many counters. Sicily Triumph and Folly has some interesting features like individual headquarters for divisions. That's not something we see in OCS anymore. American units with organic trucks, for example, might have been probably the first time we saw that, for instance. So there's some interesting like order of battle features in Sicily 1 that aren't in Sicily 2, which is significantly more streamlined. It plays quite a bit faster. I think experienced OCS players like, say, Fucko and I could sit down and play Sicily 2 in a day. Sicily 1 would take longer. It would take probably a weekend or a convention length. There's a reason I have them both. They are both good games. They are different enough to play on their own merits, both of them. I kind of prefer Sicily 1, as Doug is saying here, too, just because I like the extra chew. But I think Sicily 2 is also a very strong game. And OCS Depot is now on the multi-man site for clarity on that. And Carl has given us the actual numbers. Sicily 1 was 2.5 miles to the hex. Sicily 2 is the new European OCS scale at 3.5 miles to the hex, which worked a lot better when the time came to do, say, Beyond the Rhine, for example. So neither uses the standard OCS. OCS doesn't really have like a hard scale, right? It does vary from game to game, but the East Front games, which is the vast majority of the OCS games, are 5 miles to the hex. I believe DAC and DAC 2 might be 2.5 as well. Carl might correct me on that. I've never played DAC or DAC 2. So the OCS games I haven't played are the early ones, Guderian's Blitzkrieg and Enemy at the Gates, but I've played their replacements, GB2 and Case Blue. I've never played Burma, and I've never played either version of DAC. I've played all the other ones. So, and I guess Tunisia, I haven't played Tunisia 1 either, but I have played Tunisia 2. So the only OCS games that haven't like been redone-ish, and I haven't played Huba's Pocket, but I've played Third Winter, and that basically is incorporating Huba's Pocket too. Carl mentions that DAC and DAC 2 are 5 miles to the hex, which is the standard East Front scale. So I've heard really good things about Burma. I would love to play it. I will certainly play it someday. I have everything ever published for OCS, including all the stuff that I didn't really need because I have it twice. So, all right, folks. So what's going on the rest of the week? We got Molotov Cockatiel will be on with us tomorrow on the show with Dan. So tune in for that. I also have a project this week, which is to reach out to all of the people that I need to reach out to get on the Tuesday Chit Show. So that is going to happen this week. There are videos in the pipeline. I don't know exactly what I'm going to get done, but there will minimally be something on Thursday and probably an additional video this week, because I actually went and looked at my queue, my video editing queue, and I'm not going to show it to you, but because it's not loading. But I've got about 20 videos in the editing queue to do. Now, some of them are trivial, but some of them aren't. So in any case, so there'll be videos coming over the next couple of weeks. Shorts are scheduled out clear through the end of like October 14th or August 14th. So there's plenty of shorts coming. There'll be shorts every day. Some of them will be the RPG shorts that I've been doing, and some of them will be the wargaming shorts. We're getting back to that. Some of those are scheduled as well. Reluctant Enemies is terrific. It's just hard to get. And there are pedagogical reasons why I think Reluctant Enemies is really, really good at learning OCS on, and other reasons why I think it won't show you everything you want to see as an OCS training game. Smolensk is a little more scalable in that respect, but it's also a little harder to learn from because it's a more complicated situation. There's basically kind of 3 routes through the Reluctant Enemies map, where there aren't 3 routes through the Smolensk map. You got to figure the routes out. You can just look at the map and see the routes in Reluctant Enemies. So on the one hand, there's that narrowing of choices might be beneficial to learning the game because you can see what the options are very easily. And on the other hand, there are features of OCS like extenders that you will not see in Reluctant Enemies. Carl seems to think that there's too many game-specific rules. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that might be a good point too. So, yeah. So, as Eric Brocious mentions, there's 3 axes of advance, so you can kind of see that. You can look at the map and say, okay, I can go this way, or I can go this way, or I can go this way, and you can see the decision that you have to make. That does mean that I don't think people will necessarily repeat play Reluctant Enemies about a bunch of different times. There is no Bir Hakim OCS game. That is a GTS game, No Question of Surrender. That's the GTS in series instead. So, all right, folks, we are out of time and in fact are 8 minutes over, which we don't typically do. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Once again, do thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair and to our sponsor, Noble Knight Games. Thanks to everybody who comes out tonight. Remember, you are supporting the show by being here every night, and I really appreciate it. So once again, thanks everyone. We will see you all tomorrow if you're there. If not, we will see you next week.